A recent article points to one area in which pro-lifers and those who support abortion agree that hospitals are shirking the responsibility regarding emergency pregnancies. Writing in the new Atlantis, Leah Libresco Sargeant says hospital rules in the post-Roe landscape are vague at best and sometimes prioritize risk management over the needs of families and the unborn. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden released a report in December 2024 saying hospitals must change how they are responding to the legal landscape since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. In particular, this impacts the 19 states with abortion bans and where some doctors and hospital administrators oppose the new pro-life laws. For more, we turn to the author of that piece. Leah Libresco Sargeant is a Catholic pro-life author and speaker. Leah, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Leah, what made you write this piece and why now?
Ever since Dobbs, I've been really curious about how abortion bans would be implemented at the hospital level. Because if you think about it this way, it's the state house that passes the law, it's the court that reviews the law for compliance with state or federal constitutions, and then it's hospitals who build the last mile of law by translating the legal text into guidance for their doctors. And what I've been surprised to find is even a considerable time after Dobbs, a number of hospitals simply are not carrying out that final responsibility of translating the law into guidance that their doctors can rely on.
Now, tell us a little bit more about what you call these gray zones in hospital policies and how they are especially impacting pro-life states.
Absolutely. Some of these testimonies come directly from doctors themselves who talked to roundtables convened by Senator Wyden and said very bluntly that their hospitals were failing to provide them guidance in these gray zones or failing to write a written policy at all. One hospital doctor complained that when in Tennessee an abortion ban was passed, the hospital dissolved the committee that was meant to provide guidance to doctors. Another doctor repeatedly requested a meeting and was ghosted for months on end, which isn't how hospitals treat similar questions of where to operate in the boundaries of the law, how to balance the needs of different patients, etc. So these are, to be frank, pro-choice doctors who oppose the law but think their hospitals can and must do better.
Well, that's encouraging to see. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, some of the article is based on a report by Democrat Senator Ron Wyden, who supports abortion. And as you point out, some of his findings are useful for pro-lifers. Can you explain how that is?
One thing I think is really good is that Senator Wyden was interested in figuring out what the ground truth is in hospitals right now. And I think because these doctors saw him as ideologically aligned, they were able to be franker about how their hospitals were failing to support them and their patients and the babies than they might have been if a conservative senator had led this charge. And ultimately, in the end, a lot of these doctors think they are freer to practice and freer to offer good service to pregnant moms than their hospitals are admitting they are. And that does moms a real disservice, whatever side of the abortion question you're on.
So what happens next? Where do you see this going? And what are some ways to end the indecision from hospitals?
Wyden's report highlighted a few hospitals that really were doing a good job. The goal is for hospitals to have clear, almost flow charts of here's when you can intervene, here's where watchful waiting is appropriate, here's where you don't have to wait for a mom to be in imminent danger to feel free to operate. We've already, as a matter of hospital policy, written up that you're free to intervene for a mom who's already showing signs of sepsis without needing to wait until her temperature crosses this threshold or she's lost this much blood. Some hospitals are already doing this. I think one of the cases where hospitals most need to put policies in writing is the case of PPROM, when a mom has her amniotic sac rupture, her water break, well before a baby can survive delivery. That seems to be one of the big cases where doctors have some genuine confusion about what is and isn't allowed. But in many cases, doctors are mostly free to practice the way they've always practiced in a crisis when a mom's life is at risk, but their hospitals aren't admitting that that's true or promising to back them up.
Now, Leah, is there anything else that you think we should be keeping our eye on this issue?
I think one thing to keep an eye on is a tension within the pro-choice movement between People closest to the ground, often doctors, who really want to look at any place in the law that's ambiguous about safe practice and clarify it, even when they oppose the underlying law, and people who are further from serving moms and are mostly involved on the activist side, who say, as a matter of policy, that pro choicers shouldn't support any revision of the law that falls short of a full restoration of Roe. This has been a fight at the state level in several states between groups like Planned Parenthood and doctors on the ground who want to say, I hate this law. I'd love to see it repealed, but I think with a few tweaks, we can make it much clearer we're protecting women in crisis. And Planned Parenthood and other groups say, as a matter of policy, we cannot support endorsing any version of these laws as less bad, especially, they say, when it would imply that some terminations are morally okay to save a mom's life, but an elective termination is not.
Now, Leah, the March for Life is just around the corner. Is there anything you'll be marching for?
I'm really marching for the idea that women's liberation and freedom doesn't have to come at the expense of the degradation of our children. And I think most of all in our culture, and especially around these medical questions, there's a lack of clarity and a lack of hope that it's possible to love women without shortchanging babies or vice versa.
Well, Leah, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.